Welcome back, everybody, to our beautiful classroom. It is a bloody sandy day in the neighborhood, and we are talking today about daggers. Daggers are a useful item for travelers, adventurers, merchants, nobility, when a sword isn't really applicable, or when you need something smaller. Maybe you need just a utility blade. You don't really need an actual weapon, but you don't want your utility blade to be useless just in case. I know that daggers, especially large daggers, were a very useful weapon for spearmen and for archers who couldn't carry a full-size sword because they had to carry more weight for other things. So let's... Wow, you are twerking up a storm over here. How did you even get over here? Come here, come to daddy. There we go. Get over here. Come on. There we go. All right, let's drop you two on the table. All right, we're gonna get into this starting this way to this way. A few of my daggers have already despawned. That's okay though. We will get to that when we get to that. Starting off, we're gonna start on the utility side, and we'll slowly get more and more into the weapon and war. You're just gonna roll right off the fucking table, aren't you? There. Wow, that went in really easily. Holy shit. There's only one weapon I'm missing. This bad boy. I'm missing a few others, but we'll get to those. So the kukri, as well as the Baroque-back Sikhs. Now these are both very ornate, actually, now that I look at them, for being a utility knife, but their origins were in utility. The Baroque-back Sikhs was used by the Vikings, as you can tell by those Norse runes. These things were very useful. Can I help you? Sorry, my child is right there watching me record. She loves to watch me play this game. I don't know why. It's terrifying. So the Brokeback Sikhs was often used as a utility knife for chopping wood, the same as the kukri. Now, this is a bit thin, you'd think, for like chopping wood. Well, I'm not talking like firewood. Now, this guy was used for chopping firewood, all right? All that weight right there with that good curve, bam! It's also used for hacking meat through the bone, bam! Used for weeding, boom! The kukri was the end-all be-all. And on top of that, they would use these to terrifying degrees, again, Norse and Tibetan. They would use these guys to terrifying degrees against the wildlife. You know, things like leopards, crocodiles, you know, whatever may come your way. One of these things could definitely get the job done. Not really a great thrusting knife because the tip here is offset from your handle, meaning when you hit, your wrist is going to give, so it really needs a real strong wrist to thrust in. Same with this guy because of his clip tip, not really a thrusting knife, but again, these were not weapons of war. All right, if you're going to stab with this, you're not trying to into the, you're going shunk, and then you're going chop. With this guy, you're just chopping or you're poking little holes with that bit, just pokety, pokety, pokety. These were utility, not war. The greatest example of utility, not war, your standard fucking huntsman's knife. Huntsman's knives were uber common among archers because most archers, especially Saxon archers, who were oftentimes actual huntsmen, and as well as Germanic longbowmen, who were actually just huntsmen who were really talented with the bow because that's how they survived being huntsmen. They would bring their daggers with them to war for whatever they needed, for sharpening a stick, for chopping meat, for cutting rope, whatever you needed, skinning a deer, the huntsman's knife could do it. And in a pinch, when you're, grappling with an opponent, chink, right into the neck, they're dead. Now, next we're moving on to some weapons of war that are meant for the actual kill. I've got myself my sword hilt dagger, a classic favorite of mine when I first got this game. I had one of these on my hip at all times, no matter what else my loadout was. Because when you're in really close and your sword can't quite get that chop, you don't want to do, you're trying to get that stab in, pulling one of these off your hip, oh, spoilers, sorry, pulling one of these off your hip and going into the gut, or you see an archer over there, I don't have a shield, I could just wing and just whip it at the archer, and it, right in the eye. It was a wonderful weapon. Now, if I wanted a dagger, I'll usually go with this guy because I like his grip a little better. Less chance of sliding off. Now again, this is a game. I'm not actually gonna slide off the handle. But IRL, I would also prefer one of these guys because they have a better taper. They're not as fat tapered. Hi Bonnie. Can you shut up please? I love you. They're not as fat tapered and they got a bit more length, meaning that stab's a bit easier to get, especially through leather armor. The stab's also going to be a little harder because of that length. It's harder to get that big stab in there. But I know a stab from this is going to be more lethal because I'm probably going to go through their body instead of just into it. Speaking of that lethal stab, I've got these guys here. I don't have my tri-tip. It's already despawned, but I'll get to him in a minute. These two bad boys are stabbing daggers of war. The Quillian dagger, turn around. Let me hold you proper, thank you. Wow, that was difficult. And the Rondel dagger, called so because of its spiral hand grip, which made it easier to grip. This guy didn't have the spiral hand grip, but he does have these little knobs on him that prevent my hand from sliding up the dagger. You know, you hit that and you stop. These were jabbed in through the armpits, in through the side, through the neck, used to target the elbows, like the inside of the elbow, not the backside. The backside be armored, but they target the inside of the. I'm moving my real arm, hoping it'll rotate the in-game one, not forgetting that it's all rendered and shit. Anywho, yeah, they'd hit the inside here, trying to chop through your arm or at least sever a tendon or something, making you go nah, and drop your dagger or your sword or whatever else you're holding. Now this one always comes back this way because again, stabbing weapon. Oh, I was hoping it'd just sink into the table. One more stabbing weapon on the docket before I move on. This guy, fucking fan favorite, been on the show before. Aw, come on, do the thing. Oh, he's not going to do the thing. All right, this is the tri-tip. And again, we've talked about it due to that tri-tip there, that little pyramid shape. When this thing goes into the body, the wound cannot be closed. And because it's a thick-ass triangle instead of just like a two-sided blade like all of these, it's not going to bend or break when you stab. It's a solid, real solid implement for going into the body, but has zero slashing potential. In this game, it does allow it to slash, which I think is really stupid because, again, this thing would have zero slashing potential. But this thing could bust chainmail, possibly pierce plate if you really drove it home. This thing, fucking, my phrase here, a nasty bit of work. A nasty bit of work. Absolute uber nasty bit of work. All right, now we're moving on to two daggers that were always on their wielders at all times, never left their side, because they were the weapon of choice when the primary weapon was not available, and sometimes they were used as the primary weapon. The Landsneach dagger and the Annalise. And we'll get to the Annalise second because it is my new favorite dagger in this game. So the Landsneach dagger, very thick cross section there, and a great taper. Absolute beautiful taper. Just look at that. This thing was used for slicing or stabbing by the Landsneach, which wielded Zweihandlers and Katzbalders. Now, a Katzbalder is a single-handed sword, which I think I've had on the show before. If not, we'll get to it in the next episode where we cover swords. They never took these daggers off their body. Ever. They'd shower with them. They'd bathe with them. They'd go to the... You okay? She started to cry for a second. Oh, I think she's stuck in a hamper. That's fine. They'd have them on them when they're at formal events, hence the gilding of the blade and the little patterns here on it. These things went with them everywhere because a Landsneach, being a elite mercenary, never knew when he'd have to take on an assassin or when he'd have to defend the king, or even if they were going to duel, they would duel with these. If the Zweihandlers they wielded were not, and I don't have a Zweihandler over there, I don't know, I'm gesturing. If the Zweihandlers they had were not compatible. Next up is a sword most often used by nobility. It's a short sword, long dagger, kind of in that gray area. But it's amazing at stabbing and really good at slashing, and was often worn by nobility as a dueling weapon or as a weapon of self-defense. Also known as the burgher sword, the Annalise. Now, at least I hope that's how the name is pronounced. But it's also known as a burgher sword because it was wielded by the burghers, aka the merchants. This was a weapon of self-defense over offense. Um, Typically not meant to be like, I'm gonna go to war with this. No, this was wielded to protect yourself. The divot here in the handle is so that when the blade hit, it would fall into that divot and get stuck there. Kind of, it would catch there, allowing one to rotate and come in with a following stab to kind of get around someone's blade. It has a wonderful taper down the sides, allowing for good draw strikes and pull slashes with a hard taper at the top to really bust chainmail, though it's going to hinder its stabbing potential. In the end, it will make it a bit more sturdy on the tip. So like the tip isn't as thin. The whole blade's not as thin. It allowed the blade to be a bit thicker. This full length fuller though, fuller going all the way down, typical of self-defense weapons, not of weapons of war. Most weapons of war did not have full body fullers. The fuller would go through the main of the blade and stop on the way to the top. I have a great example of that on the longsword here. The fuller goes down the slashing portion of the blade, while the stabbing portion of the blade is full diamond. That way the stabbing portion has a lot more durability to it. But yeah, this self-defense over offense. Still my favorite dagger in the game, as well as my favorite short sword. And that does include things like the Gladius, the Makarata, the Copus, the Xiphus, all those other famous short swords from history. The Annalise takes the cake for me. That wide guard, coupled with a good slicing blade, definite stabbing potential. Just my favorite. All right, we're going to do a few 1v1s here, just so I can kind of show you how... hold on. Let me get my teaching aids turned on. Don't want to die. Need that. I'm going to turn that on just for shits and giggles. All right. So we're going to start with the Landsneech dagger, which again, very inner body dagger. So what they would do is they'd come in, the enemy'd swing, ching, there's the block, and they'd come in at the throat, come in at the gut, boom, grip, boom. Now, he actually brought me the sword I was talking about earlier, which again, you can see not full body fullers. The stabbing tip is flat, even though this is a terrible stabbing tip. This is a cat's balder, which the Landsneech would wield as their single-handed sword. He actually brought me it, and you can tell that they're Landsneech weapons by the signature S-shaped guard that both of these weapons share. So yeah, he actually brought me the sword I was talking about earlier, but we'll cover him in our... Wow, that's nice. We'll cover him in our next episode. I'm going to fight one more guy with this dagger, just to show off now its slicing potential over its stabbing. All right, there's my opponent. They come in. I duck. Boom. Oh, bad tracking. Boom, boom. See, right through. Not the deepest cuts, but again, it's a dagger with not a lot of weight behind it. So it's not about, slicing a head off. Whoa, Jesus. So yeah, not about slicing a head off. More about giving cuts that'll bleed. So as you can see, oh, that's nasty. Cuts across the face, across the eyes, chins. All of these are surface level except for this one right here, which definitely went a good bit deeper. This one, even to the neck, wasn't a finishing cut. See, they're bleeding bad, but it wasn't a finishing cut. And that's because this dagger's so thick on the side here. As you can see, it's really thick. so it's not a great slicing weapon. This weapon's definitely, due to its beautiful taper, built for that stab. All right, now we're moving on to the Annalise. There's my opponent, coming at me with another short sword. Hell yeah. Oh, look how deep that went in. Oh, right in like butter. So I stabbed him in through the armpit here, where they would aim if an opponent had chainmail. And as you can see, the dagger's long enough to come out the other side of his body, which definitely puts it in the short sword. Oh, that's nice and messy. Oh, I got a slice on my hand. Ouch. Which definitely puts it on the short sword side of daggers. Now we're going to show off its slicing capabilities against somebody with an axe. Just like that. So as you can see, these slices are all semi-deep. They're not, not taking an arm off with this thing. But, even if I get a good inner body, see, again, they're just semi-deep cuts. Not going to take an arm off, not going to take a head off. But they were all nasty enough to definitely stagger my opponent. Hold on, I just want to try something. I'm just going to try to take the head off. Yeah, see? It's not going to do it. Definitely a bloody weapon, though. Again, meant for the stabs. Slices is an afterthought, but slices are insanely capable with this weapon. Somebody could definitely slice. If you had better tracking than I do, right? Oh, my fingers. If you had better tracking than I do, you could probably easily get some nice neck shots, cut the wrist to make them drop the weapon. You could do a lot of nasty things with that, but due to my tracking, with the rig I got, some of that stuff is a little beyond me right now. I'm definitely hoping to upgrade that as time goes on, but again, that's as time goes on. As you can hear, I definitely have a little one who demands a lot more of my attention than VR gaming does. All right. So that covers today's lesson on daggers. Tomorrow's lesson is going to be about single-sided and double-sided blades. That will be a bit longer episode. I'm going to try and reduce it as much as possible, but I will see you then in our classroom. Goodbye, everybody.